Hello, Bryn. Chapter 14. This is our last chapter of the book. Henry died last year at the age of 63. His work completed. He had been at it for just on 20 years. His personal reference book listed 371 major casinos in 21 different countries or islands. He had visited them all many times, and he had never lost. According to John Winston's accounts, he had made altogether £144 million. He left 21 well-established, well-run orphanages scattered about the world, one in each country he visited. All these were administered and financed from Lucerne by John and his staff. But how do I, who am neither Max Engelmann nor John Winston, happen to know all of this? And how did I come to write the story in the first place? I will tell you. Soon after Henry's death, John Winston telephoned me from Switzerland. He introduced himself simply as the head of a company calling itself Orphanages S.A., and he asked me if I would come out to Lucerne to see him and with a view to writing a brief history of the organization. I don't know how he got hold of my name. He probably had a list of other writers and stuck a pin into it. He would pay me well, he said, and he added, "A remarkable man has died recently. His name was Henry Sugar. I think people ought to know a bit more about what he has done." In my ignorance, I asked whether the story was really interesting enough to merit being put on paper. "All right," said the man who now controlled £144 million. "Forget it. I'll ask someone else. There are plenty of writers around." That needled me. "No," I said. "Wait. Could you at least tell me who this Henry Sugar was and what he did? I've never heard of him." In 5 minutes on the phone, John Winston told me something about Henry Sugar's secret career. It was secret no longer. Henry was dead and would never gamble again. I listened, enthralled. "I will be on the next plane," I said. "Thank you," John Winston said. "I would appreciate that." In Lucerne, I met John Winston, now over 70, and also Max Engelmann, who was about the same age. They were both still shattered by Henry's death. Max even more than John Winston, for Max had been beside him constantly for over 13 years. "I loved him," Max said, the shadow falling over his face. "He was a great man. He never thought about himself. He never kept a penny of the money he won, except when he needed to travel and eat. Listen, once we were in Biarritz, and he had just been to the bank and given them £500,000 to send home to John. It was lunchtime. He went to a place and had a simple lunch, an omelette and a bottle of wine, and when the bill came, Henry hadn't got anything to pay it with. I had neither. He was a lovely man. I knew they were into each other." John Winston told me everything he knew. He showed me the original dark blue notebook written by Dr. John Cartwright in Bombay, 1934, about Imrat Khan, and I copied it out word for word. "Henry always carried it with him," John Winston said. "In the end, he knew the whole thing by heart." He showed me the account books of Orphanages S.A. with Henry's winnings recorded in them day by day over 20 years, and a truly staggering sight they were. When he had finished, I said to him, "There's a big gap in this story." "Mr. Winston, you've told me almost nothing about Henry's travels and his adventures in the casinos of the world." "That is Max's story," John Winston says. "Max knows all about that because he was with him. But he says he wants to have a shot writing it himself. He's already started." Then why not let Max write the whole thing, I asked. He doesn't want to, John Winston said. He only wants to write about Henry and Max. It should be a fantastic story if he ever gets it finished. But he is old now, like me, and I doubt he'll manage it. One last question, I said. You keep calling him Henry Sugar, and yet you tell me that isn't his name. Don't you want me to say who he really was when I do the story? No, John Winston said. Max and I promised never to reveal it. Oh, it'll probably leak out sooner or later. After all, he was from a fairly well-known English family. But I'd appreciate it if you don't try and find out. Just call him plain Mr. Henry Sugar. And that is what I have done. That's the end of the story now. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how I had sugar cookies. I got around to making them, and I used a Lego cookie cutter and made some heads with some yellow icing. So if I get around to it, maybe I will make some faces on these before I eat them all. Good night, Bryn. Sleep well.